Have you ever sat across from someone, smiling, nodding, pretending you're fine, while inside you're screaming? Not because you're weak, but because deep down you know they're not good for you. And yet, you keep letting them back in. They twist your words, mock your dreams, drain your energy, and somehow you keep giving them another chance, hoping this time will be different. You lie awake at night, replaying conversations, rewriting comebacks you never said, wondering how someone can hurt you so deeply without ever laying a hand. It's not just anger you feel, it's exhaustion. Like you're carrying 1,000 invisible cuts that never quite heal. And still you question yourself. Maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I'm the problem. But here's the Stoic truth. You're not responsible for someone else's poison, only for drinking it. The ancient Stoics understood this. They faced emperors, betrayal, and war, and still held on to a simple truth. You can't control what others do. You only control how you respond. Today that means something even more urgent. You don't control who hurts you, but you absolutely control who gets to stay. So today we're not here to blame. We're here to reclaim your boundaries, your time, your peace. Because peace isn't something they hand you, it's something you defend. Let's begin. Part 1. Forgive without forgetting. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone off the hook. It means letting yourself off the hook. There was a time I shared something deeply personal with someone I trusted, something I'd never told anyone else. And they turned it into a weapon. Not in some loud, obvious way. No, it was subtle. And somehow even worse. They twisted it into a story, told it behind my back, and turned my pain into a punchline. And when I found out, I just froze. It's a strange kind of betrayal, when someone smiles to your face but behind the scenes they're pulling the rug out from under you. I wore my anger like armor. I played that betrayal over and over in my head, thinking of everything I should have said. I avoided places they might be. I walked into every room already bracing for impact. But no one tells you how heavy anger can get. I thought I was protecting myself by holding on to it. Truth is, I was just sinking. Then I came across a line that hit me like a punch to the gut. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And suddenly it all made sense. They had moved on, laughing, posting, living. I was the one stuck, replaying, resenting, rewinding. I wasn't holding a grudge. The grudge was holding me. So I forgave them. But not the way you think. No dramatic message. No heart-to-heart conversation. No second chance. I forgave them quietly in my own head. I told myself, you don't get to live here anymore. You're evicted. And something inside me shifted. But I didn't forget. Because forgetting would be like leaving the door unlocked after you've been robbed. That moment, that scar, it became a reminder. Not of the pain, but of the lesson. The Stoics had a name for this, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Not to live in fear but to be prepared. To understand that pain is part of life, and that every wound teaches. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength. The strength to say, you don't get to define me. You don't get to control me. Not anymore. But forgetting? That's not strength. That's foolish. That's how the same people hurt you twice. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, when someone wrongs you, ask yourself, what kind of person are they? And does their behavior reflect your worth or theirs? When you hold on to bitterness, you carry their actions inside your body. But when you forgive, you break the chain. And when you remember, you guard the gate. So let's be real. Forgiveness isn't something you give them. It's something you give yourself. You don't have to trust them again. You don't even have to speak to them again. But you do have to let go, so you can finally move forward. That's what the Stoics meant by emotional mastery. It's not pretending you were never hurt. It's choosing not to let that hurt steer your life. So if you're still angry, that's okay. But you don't have to stay there forever. Drop the bitterness. Keep the lesson. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength. And that's your first step back to peace. Part 2. Limit their access. Let me say this plainly. Not everyone deserves full access to your life. I know that sounds harsh. But protecting your peace is not cruelty, it's clarity. I used to say yes to everyone. The dependable one, the helper, the fixer. But the more I gave, the more they took. Until one day I realized, I'm not being kind, I'm being used. The Stoics taught that logic should lead emotion. So when someone repeatedly drains you, the rational response is distance. Not arguments, not revenge, just distance. Here's what I started doing. That friend who only calls when they need to vent? I stopped answering every time. That coworker who gossips like it's their job? One-word replies. No eye contact. That family member who disguises criticism as concern? I tell them less and less. No fights, no drama. Just new boundaries they didn't even realize were there. Marcus Aurelius said, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Toxic people rarely are. Ask yourself, do they bring peace or anxiety? Do you feel heard or drained? Do they encourage you or compete with you? If someone's presence feels like a storm, you don't need to explain why you're seeking shelter. Protecting your peace isn't rude. It's responsible. Your energy is your most valuable asset. Treat it like a VIP section. Some folks, they belong in general admission, if that. Because when you finally stop letting the wrong people in, you make more room for the right ones. And in that stillness, that quiet, you realize you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong people. Part 3. Use humor to disarm them. There's a moment, quiet, tense, when a toxic person throws a jab. You feel it land. And you have two choices, lash out or smile. I know, it sounds backwards, but hear me out. Toxic people thrive on tension, on getting a rise out of you. Your anger is fuel. Your silence? That's sabotage to their script. But laughter? Laughter is a weapon they never see coming. I used to work with someone who nitpicked everything. My clothes, my coffee, my desk. One day, in front of a room full of people, they pointed at my cluttered workstation and said, "Wow, did a tornado hit your desk, or is that your natural style?" I looked at the mess, looked at them, smiled and said, "Creative chaos. Einstein's was worse. So I guess I'm on track." The room laughed. They didn't. That was the last time they ever commented on my desk. What? Because humor stole their spotlight and made their cruelty look small. The Stoics were masters of emotional control. They knew you don't have to meet fire with fire. You can meet it with water or wit. When someone tries to provoke you and you respond with calm humor, you're doing something radical. You're showing them they don't own your emotions. You're unshaken, and that drives them insane. But here's the catch. Your humor has to be light, playful, never cruel. Because if you hit back with sarcasm or venom, you're playing their game. And in their game, they always win. The goal isn't to hurt them. The goal is to deflate the drama. Let's say someone interrupts you in a meeting for the third time. You could snap. Or you could say, "Looks like we're playing tag team today. My turn now." It's funny, firm, and it stops them cold. Or when someone guilt trips you with, "Guess you're too busy to care anymore," you could respond, "Busted. I've been training for the world's worst friend competition. Looks like I'm winning." You're not dismissing their toxicity. You're refusing to be poisoned by it. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Toxic people try to pull you into their imagined chaos. Humor keeps you grounded in reality, your reality. Here's why this works. 1. It shifts the power. If you're laughing, you're not losing. 2. It exposes their pettiness. Jabs don't land when the crowd's laughing with you. 3. It changes the rules. They want control. Humor reminds them you're not playing. The Stoics taught that our response is the only true thing we control. Humor is one of the most underrated responses in our arsenal. But most importantly, humor isn't about dismissing pain, it's about reclaiming peace. When you choose levity over hostility, you're declaring, "I will not become what hurts me." You're not mocking them. You're mastering yourself. And the moment you do that, you stop being their target and become their mirror. They'll either back off or unravel in the silence of your smile. That's not weakness. That's wisdom with a punchline. And it's your next step back to peace. Part 4. Don't match their energy, master your own. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been pulled into someone else's chaos just because you didn't pause long enough to remember who you are? You're having a good day. Everything's flowing. Then out of nowhere, boom. One message, one glare, one sharp comment. And just like that, your peace is gone. You snap back. They snap harder. Now you're both angry, defensive, drained. And afterward, you sit there thinking, how did I let them drag me into this again? That's how toxic people win. Not by being right, but by making you reactive. The Stoics knew this. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke. In plain English, you don't control the storm, but you do control your sail. Toxic people feed off chaos. They want attention. They want emotional whiplash. Their power comes from how quickly they can pull you away from yourself. So how do you fight that? You don't. You don't match their energy. You master your own. It's not easy. I remember a moment when a close friend snapped at me in public, over something tiny. My ego flared. I had a dozen comebacks ready to go. But just before I fired back, I paused. I took a breath, and I said, "Are you okay?" Not sarcastically, not passive-aggressively, genuinely. They froze. Shoulders dropped. Voice cracked. And just like that, the fight disappeared. Because the issue? It wasn't about me. And most of the time, it's not about you either. People lash out when they're hurting, when they're scared, when they're overwhelmed. And sometimes, you're just the safest place for their storm to land. That doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps you not absorb it. Seneca said, "No man is hurt but by himself." Meaning, your peace is your job, no one else's. If someone cuts you off in traffic, mocks you online, or tries to bait you into gossip, remember this. You don't owe them your energy. You owe yourself your peace. And protecting your peace doesn't mean being passive. Stoicism isn't weakness. It's strategy. Sometimes you walk away. Sometimes you say nothing. And sometimes you say everything, but with poise, not poison. Here's a mindset shift that changed my life. Just because someone throws a ball at you, doesn't mean you have to catch it. You get to decide what game you're playing. You don't have to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to prove your worth to someone who's already decided you're not enough. You don't have to argue with fools to be wise. That's not avoidance. That's emotional discipline. It's stepping out of their noise so you can hear your own clarity again. The Stoics called this ataraxia, inner stillness that doesn't shake. And the more you protect that stillness, the stronger it becomes. Because nothing confuses a toxic person more than someone who won't take the bait. They'll push harder, louder, meaner. But the moment they realize they can't access your peace, they lose interest. They move on, searching for someone else to pull down with them. But not you. You've stepped off the battlefield. You've chosen clarity over chaos. You've chosen strength that doesn't shout. You've chosen calm that doesn't chase. And that's your next step back to peace. Part 5. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Here's something most people are too afraid to say out loud. Every time you say yes to a toxic person, you're saying no to something sacred, your peace, your time, your mental health. And let me tell you, that trade? It's never worth it. See, toxic people don't always come out of nowhere. Sometimes they've been in your life for years. A childhood friend, a longtime coworker, even a family member you've always felt obligated to keep around. But over time they chip away at you. It's rarely explosive. It's slow, quiet, a constant drain on your spirit. And that's what makes them so dangerous. They don't take your energy all at once. They steal it piece by piece. Before you know it, you're showing up to life feeling less alive, less motivated, more reactive, more guarded, until one day, you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself anymore. You tell yourself you're strong for staying, for putting up with it, for keeping the peace. But the truth? Real strength isn't staying where you're being slowly destroyed. Real strength is walking away. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They weren't anti-people. They were pro-discernment. They believed you must guard your inner world, because what you allow in shapes who you become. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. And what you allow into your space becomes the paint. Your energy is limited. You can earn back money. You can catch up on lost time. But once your spirit's drained, recovering it takes everything. So protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. Be honest with yourself. Who leaves you feeling empty after a conversation? Who makes you question your worth? Who only calls when they want something? Those aren't just red flags. They're signs you've been too generous with your energy. And no, it doesn't mean you cut people off with drama or resentment. It means you adjust. You pull back. You get smart. Toxic people aren't always bad people. Sometimes they're just broken. But that doesn't mean you're obligated to fix them. You can let them stay stuck while you build something better. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're protection. Try this. I'm not available to talk about that right now. I need space. That behavior doesn't sit right with me. It'll feel uncomfortable at first. You might feel selfish, even cruel. Let me be clear. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always make you feel guilty for setting them. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It means they no longer have access to use you. Eventually, your boundaries won't feel like walls. They'll feel like peace. Your mornings get lighter. Your relationships get safer. Your sense of self returns. You realize peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from protecting what fuels you, your energy, your time, your truth. That's what the Stoics called eudaimonia, a life of flourishing. And that doesn't begin by changing toxic people. It begins when you finally choose you. Part 6. Silence is your weapon. Use it wisely. Here's something most people never realize until it's already too late. You don't owe toxic people an explanation. Not for your silence. Not for your distance. Not for choosing peace. Because silence? It's not weakness. It's not giving up. It's power. Toxic people feed on reaction. They crave your anger, your defenses, your explanations. Anything that shows they still control your emotions. But when you stop reacting, you cut off their supply. I had to learn this the hard way. There was someone in my life who always knew how to provoke me. Just the right words, just the right timing, always stirring the pot and then playing the victim when I finally lost it. It was a pattern. They pushed. I snapped. They twisted it. I became the villain. Until one day, I just didn't respond. I looked at them. No anger. No emotion. Just stillness. And in that moment, I watched their power disappear. That's when I finally understood what Epictetus meant when he said, "It's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters." Toxic people can yell, guilt trip, gossip. But they can't fight your silence. They can't twist it. They can't use it against you. It leaves them empty-handed. Silence is how you stop playing their game. You step out of the arena. And you win by not playing. But here's the part most people miss. Silence isn't just about what you don't say. It's about what you protect. Your peace. Your focus. Your self-worth. You don't need to explain why you stopped replying. Why you no longer overshare. Why you no longer entertain their drama. Your healing doesn't require their understanding. In fact, one of the strongest moves you can make is to quietly disappear from their storm while you build your own peace. Let them say you're cold. Let them create their own version of the story. Let them spiral without you in it. Because the people meant for you, they won't need an explanation. They'll feel the strength behind your silence. The Stoics taught this long ago. We may not control the noise around us, but we always control the stillness within us. Marcus Aurelius put it best. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Silence is how you take that power back. It's how your nervous system learns to breathe again. It's how you remember who you are, without someone else's chaos clouding your thoughts. So the next time they try to bait you, pause. The next time they send a guilt-laced message, breathe. The next time they rewrite the narrative, smile. And keep walking. Because your peace, it's not up for negotiation. You don't have to win. You don't have to explain. You just have to stay silent long enough for their noise to lose power. And it will. Because silence isn't the absence of strength. It's the presence of wisdom. That's not avoidance. That's Stoicism in action. Part 7. You don't need closure, you need clarity. Let's talk about something nobody really tells you when it comes to dealing with toxic people. You don't need closure. Not a final conversation. Not an apology. Not even acknowledgement of what they did. Because the hard truth? Most of the time, you're never going to get any of that. And waiting on them to bring you peace? That's like asking the person who broke you to come fix you. You don't need closure. What you need, what you've always needed, is clarity. Clarity about what happened. Clarity about what it cost you. And most importantly, clarity about what you deserve moving forward. Toxic people are experts at distortion. They'll rewrite the past, twist your words, and somehow make you look like the villain in a story where you were the one bleeding. They want you disoriented, trapped in a fog of self-doubt, constantly second-guessing everything. Because confusion keeps you stuck. But clarity? Clarity breaks the chain. The Stoics knew this well. That's why they taught us to focus only on what we can control. Don't hope that events will turn out the way you want. Instead, welcome events in whichever way they happen. This is the path to peace. Epictetus. Closure is about trying to control the outcome. Clarity is about owning the truth. And the truth is, you were never going to get the apology you deserved. They were never going to change. What they did speaks volumes about them and says absolutely nothing about your worth. Let that settle in. Let it sting a little. Because right behind that sting is your freedom. You don't need their words to heal. You need your own. You need to say to yourself, I didn't deserve that. I'm allowed to move on. I don't need to keep bleeding for someone who keeps cutting. Clarity means understanding that your peace doesn't live in their understanding. It lives in your decision to stop needing it. I used to wait for closure from someone I'd been friends with for years. Someone who ghosted me without a word. I kept thinking, if I could just have one honest conversation, one real explanation, I'd finally have peace. But the day I stopped waiting, that's when I got free. I stopped replaying old conversations in my head. I stopped hoping they'd text. I stopped waiting for the moment they'd finally get it. And I started putting my energy back into me. That was the real closure. Because closure doesn't come from a conversation. It comes from a boundary. It comes from protecting your energy. From showing up for yourself. From saying, that chapter is over, and meaning it even if no one else signs off. The Stoics had a word for this, autarkia, self-sufficiency. It's not about being cold. It's about becoming whole. You no longer need anyone to validate your pain for it to matter. You no longer need someone to recognize your worth for it to exist. You already know. So here's your permission slip. Let go of the need to fix it. Let go of the version of the story where they finally come around. Let go of the waiting. Because your future deserves more than to be chained to a past that refuses to grow up. You've got peace to protect, joy to rediscover, a life to build that's no longer held hostage by someone who never deserved to write your story in the first place. You don't need closure. You need clarity. And once you have it, don't. Part 8. Their chaos isn't your responsibility. Stop trying to save them. Here's the trap so many of us fall into. We think if we just love them harder, support them longer, explain things better, they'll finally change. So we stay in toxic patterns, in draining dynamics, convinced that somehow our presence is holding it all together. But let me ask you something, while you've been trying to save them, who's been saving you? This is the part that breaks people, when you take on the responsibility for someone else's healing, their moods, their chaos, their patterns, their survival, and you do it out of love, out of loyalty, out of hope. But Stoicism teaches us a different kind of love, a grounded one, a wise one, a love with boundaries. A person's worth is measured by the worth of what they value. Marcus Aurelius. So if you keep valuing someone who drains your energy, manipulates your emotions, or traps you in constant emotional uncertainty, you're silently teaching yourself that your own peace is optional. But it's not. You weren't born to be someone's emotional bandage. You were born to live with integrity, yours. Toxic people will use guilt like a leash. You're abandoning me. No one else gets me. You're the only one I can count on. But be honest, when was the last time they showed up for you like that? One-sided loyalty isn't noble. It's just self-neglect wearing a mask. And here's the hard truth. The longer you stay, the worse it gets. Not because you're not doing enough, but because you're doing everything for someone who's doing nothing. The Stoics would tell you, your obligation is to live in alignment with your own nature, not to rescue someone who's unwilling to face theirs. Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. Marcus Aurelius. Doing the right thing might mean stepping away. It might mean letting someone down. It might even mean being misunderstood by everyone around you. But it also means choosing your peace, your clarity, your life. There is power in letting people sit with the consequences of their own choices. It's not cruelty, it's reality. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave, because staying doesn't fix them. It enables them. And worse, it breaks you. You weren't meant to spend your life in emotional survival mode. You were meant to build something meaningful. So ask yourself, who exactly are you trying to save? And what is it costing you? Your sleep? Your confidence? Your sense of self? It's time to drop what was never yours to carry. Let them weather their own storm. Let them learn the lessons they've been avoiding, not through your sacrifice but through their own accountability. Your love is not a lifeboat. It's a light. And if they refuse to walk toward it, let them sit in the dark. You don't have to hurt them with words. You just have to detach, with truth. The Stoics weren't heartless. They were clear. They understood this. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. So yes, love people. But love yourself too. Because pouring your soul into someone who refuses to rise? That's not love. That's surrender. And you? You were made for something far greater. You've come a long way. From biting your tongue to keep the peace. To finally choosing a peace that doesn't require you to break yourself in the process. From giving out endless second chances. To finally giving yourself the first real one, the chance to live free. This isn't just about walking away from toxic people. It's about coming home to yourself. The Stoics called it living in accordance with nature. And nature doesn't chase. It doesn't beg to be understood. It grows quietly, authentically, without permission. You were never meant to shrink to make someone else feel big. Never meant to bend just to stop someone else from breaking. You were meant to live with clarity, to speak with honesty, to love deeply but never foolishly. So let this be your reminder. You can forgive someone and never let them back in. You can love someone and still choose yourself. You can walk away and still wish them healing from a distance. And none of that makes you cold. It makes you complete. Because the freedom you've been searching for, it doesn't come from them changing. It comes from you deciding that your life is no longer negotiable. It comes from walking away, not out of hate but with clarity. Not for revenge but for vision. You'll know you're free when their name doesn't sting anymore. Their voice doesn't echo in your mind. Their chaos no longer controls the rhythm of your day. Because now, you've reclaimed the most sacred space of all, your mind. The Stoics never promised a life without pain. They taught us how to use pain, to let it shape us, to refine our judgment, strengthen our courage, and deepen our character. So if you're hurting right now, that's okay. It means you're still alive, still growing, still fighting for the kind of life you actually deserve. And maybe that's the most Stoic thing of all, to rise, quietly, steadily, and without anyone's permission. So take a breath, stand tall, and step forward. Not because it's easy, but because now you finally know who you are, and you're not going back. If this message hit home, share it. Drop a comment below with the moment that moved you most. What truth finally clicked? What pain are you ready to let go? And if you're still on this journey, just know you're not alone. Hit that like button. Subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into Stoic wisdom, emotional clarity, and the quiet power of living unapologetically. You don't have to stay stuck. You just have to take the next step. And I promise, the path will rise to meet you.